WEWS.
It's the Overnight Underground Podcast. Here's the headlines. Better late than never. Trump extends stay at home.
It doesn't make sense. I don't understand it.
Pelosi calls kettle black.
My wig dry on this.
Florida checkpoints activate.
And many fine, upstanding citizens love it.
New York to fine for not social distancing.
Get away from me, you slimy bastard.
Rocket surgeons can be idiots too.
God, you're so stupid!
These stories and more on today's Overnight Underground News. I'm John Ford. President Trump extended the stay-at-home order, suggestion, whatever you want to call it, for another 30 days. Yesterday, the president told Americans to stick with the plan for another 30 days until the end of April.
The peak, the highest point of death rates, remember this, is likely to hit in 2 weeks. Nothing would be worse than declaring victory before the victory is won. Therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th to slow the spread.
It's almost like the Easter Bunny came out of his hole, saw the holy hand grenade, and proclaimed another 30 days of quarantine.
We have the holy hand grenade.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Right.
1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
Nancy Pelosi wasted no time making the coronavirus crisis even more of a partisan political clusterfuck, if that's even possible.
When did the president know about this, and what did he know? What did he know, and when did he know it? That's for an after-action review. But as the president fiddles, people are dying.
House Leader Pelosi on CNN. Meanwhile, on NBC, talking head Chuck Todd asked presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden about Trump's handling of the crisis.
Do you think there is blood on the president's hands, considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
I think that's a little too harsh. I think what's happening is the failure to, as I watched a prelim to your show where someone said that, used the phrase that the president just thinks out loud. He should stop thinking out loud and start thinking deeply.
Well, that wasn't a loaded question at all. You got to give him credit. Biden actually didn't take the troll bait and answers calmly and thoughtfully. Of course, there is one problem with his response.
The president just thinks out loud. He should stop thinking out loud and start thinking deeply.
He assumes that Trump can actually form a logical thought. Really, America, this is the best we can do? Trump or this doddering old man? Forget the broken healthcare system. Our political system is beyond repair. The state of Florida is going the extra mile to keep infected New Yorkers and New Orleanians out of the Sunshine State. Gee, if they would have only thought of that about 50 years ago. Florida has set up checkpoints on I-10 so that travelers coming into Florida will now be required to complete a traveler form.
May we see your papers?
I don't think I have them on me.
In that case, we'll have to ask you to come along.
Wait, it's possible that yes. Here they are.
These papers expired 3 weeks ago. You'll have to come along.
Halt! Halt!
Travelers from Louisiana, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut will be shot. No, they won't be shot. They'll be told they have to be isolated for 14 days. Texas has also followed suit, ordering some motorists from Louisiana to self-quarantine for 2 weeks as well. You think Florida police have their work cut out for them? Pity the poor French police. French authorities have set up a special hotline for coronavirus questions, and of course, you know what happened next. The police have been fielding very French questions, including, quote, "Can my husband go and see his mistress?" And, "A stranger caressed my horse. Is there a risk of it being contaminated?"
Hello.
Ah, the French. And my favorite, do I need to buy an actual flag, or will any rectangle of white cloth work? Meanwhile, in the Empire State, Mayor Bill de Blasio said Sunday that city residents who break social distancing rules will be subject to fines up to $500. Citizen. Politico reports that the mayor has authorized police officers to cite people who are ordered to disperse, but don't.
Hold on.
You know those uplifting stories about how the brave Italians are overcoming their lockdowns by singing on their balconies and verandas in Rome? Well, Americans, take heart. Here's what happens when New Yorkers try to do it the Italian way.
Shut the f*** up!
I do believe they call that the Italian-American response. Even Eddie Murphy would be proud.
Yes! Yes! F*** you too!
Some sad news as celebrity infections and deaths continue to mount. Country crooner and DJ Joe Diffie has died at the age of 61 due to coronavirus complications. One of America's most beloved singer-songwriters, John Prine, is in critical care with symptoms consistent with COVID-19. And CBS journalist Maria Mercader is also a casualty of the virus. She died over the weekend at age 54. Yes, even an astrophysicist can sometimes be an idiot. From The Guardian, Australian astrophysicist Dr. Daniel Reardon from Melbourne University was hospitalized following a failed attempt to make a coronavirus warning device. It seems that the good doctor was trying to invent a contraption that would warn the user if they were getting ready to touch their face. Dr. Reardon was admitted to the emergency room with a malady that usually only targets toddlers. He had numerous magnets stuck up his nose. Dr. Magneto, it seems, stuck 2 magnets up his nostrils. He then attempted removal with, what else? More magnets, which of course also got stuck. Just give him an MRI. Everything will sort itself out in the end.
Ever since he was a little boy, everything he's finding around the house, he sticks up his nose. Everything that's laying around the house, up his nose it goes.
Nurse, hand me those pliers. Thank you. They are wedged in here pretty tight, aren't they? Well, let me see. Hand me that hammer. Thank you, nurse.
Doctor, you did it! Everything's out of his nose! Doctor, thank you!
Moscow is on lockdown, but in Belarus, the president of the country believes that all you need is vodka and a sauna to cure the coronavirus. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko has gone on record that countries that have gone on lockdown are in the throes of a, quote, psychosis. Sure, we're psychotic, but you, Mr. President, are completely sane with your Vodka and steam baths. According to the Times of London, Lukashenko said, quote, people should not only wash their hands with vodka, but also poison the virus with it. You should drink the equivalent of 40 to 50 milliliters of the rectified spirit daily, but not at work. Maybe the president should follow his own advice. Sounds like he's been drinking on the job. Still, just think of the cure rate if you drink vodka while in the sauna. Meanwhile, in Hungary, the Hungarian president has passed a bill that gives Prime Minister Orbán unlimited power, instituting a state of emergency without time limits, suspension of parliament, no elections, up to 5 years in prison for spreading fake news, whatever that means, and up to 8 years in prison for leaving quarantine. Germans who can still remember 1930s Germany say this all sounds very familiar.
I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
And finally, for our only non-coronavirus story today comes from the beautiful city of Detroit, Michigan. In the East Point suburb of Detroit, one cunning resident devised a clever plan to get rid of his rat problem. The homeowner decided his rodent problem was so out of control, he needed to improvise with a controlled demolition. Yep, he built a bomb to get rid of the rats. The explosion damaged 2 houses, and he ended up in the Hoosgow.
N-E-W-S.
A mostly correct and occasionally incomplete transcript and links to reference sources and articles of this Overnight Underground can be found at overnightunderground.com.